So I've got a 2-for-1 story for you today. And we're going to start with the simplest and easiest one to cover. Netflix is apparently locked and loaded, according to a service rep from Netflix themselves. Now, this info comes from a Go Nintendo user named KameHameHaX. And there'll be a link to down in the description to this news story at Go Nintendo. And it says, according to a Netflix customer service rep, Netflix is locked and loaded for Switch. Apparently, Netflix has been trying to get permission to launch their app on Switch, and as soon as Nintendo gives a go-ahead, the app can be added to the eShop. As of right now, Netflix is just waiting for Nintendo to give the green light. Yeah, so if this is true, which of course, we're taking the word of a user on Go Nintendo talking to a rep, a sales rep, I assume, or some sort of PR rep, it is very interesting that Netflix is ready to go, and literally Nintendo is just not greenlighting it. This lets you know that Nintendo is literally the sole reason why these applications like Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, etc. are not launched on the platform. There's a reason that Nintendo has not greenlit any of the many, I'm sure the copious amount of of these programs that are probably ready to go on Switch. I guarantee you it did not take these companies very long to get these programs locked and loaded on Switch. You have to wonder if Nintendo is trying to hold them so they can put it behind the paywall, make it part of their subscription service. I don't know. It's really weird that Nintendo isn't willing to launch them. Maybe Nintendo wants to launch a whole bunch of these apps at once. Have Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, Amazon Prime, and all the other possible multimedia applications just launch at a single time sometime in 2018. I have no idea why Nintendo hasn't greenlit it yet. But it's very interesting that these apps are ready and Nintendo's just like, yeah, sorry, man. You're going to have to wait. We're not going to greenlight it yet. I don't know what they're waiting for. Again, if it's for their online subscription service, that's fine. I think that's a poor move if that's the case. I mean, even Microsoft removed the requirement to have Xbox Live to watch Netflix because, why would you pay a subscription fee to watch something else that you have to pay a subscription fee to? It's just silly, and I know that we still deal with that because you technically pay for your internet and then you pay for a subscription to Xbox Live on top of your internet bill and then a subscription for Netflix. It was kind of a crazy 3-tiered system, but even Microsoft stopped doing that, so I don't know that you're going to see Nintendo do that per se, but it's possible. We don't know. It's just really strange that Nintendo hasn't okayed it. And now we're going to get into the harder to explain crazy story of the day, because I don't think it's so crazy to think Netflix is ready to go on Switch. It's not Android OS that the Switch uses, but it's a similar kind of OS related to Android. So I can't imagine it was that difficult to get Netflix ready on it. But this story is interesting. So Credit Suisse, they lift the rating of Nintendo. Obviously, they're like a credit company, to outperform current predictions. And the crazy part isn't so much that in wake of the Switch's success and the success of their mobile games, that Nintendo's credit rating is rising and their value is rising. That's been happening for a while in the stock market. What's crazy is that they are predicting 130 million units of Nintendo Switch to be sold by 2022. For a home console, that would be Nintendo's most successful, highest-selling home console ever. And just overall, in terms of game devices, that would be number 2 behind the Nintendo DS. That is nuts. Just absolutely insane to even think. It's already seems insane to me to think of it selling 100 million units. 130 million? 4 years from now? Really? So here is what they said. So they've upgraded Nintendo to outperform from neutral. They forecast 130 million Switch units, which is up from 70 million, which is what their original prediction was by 2022. And their analyst, Kiichi Yoneshima, had this to say: as Nintendo Switch is a unique game platform for use as either a console or handheld, there was initially some uncertainty over whether its sales cycle would more closely resemble that of a console or a handheld. Although the Switch is currently categorized as more of a console, we expect it to sell like a handheld. Many users are in fact using the Switch as a portable, according to a Famitsu survey of users. We previously projected a sales peak at about 3 years after launch, i.e. fiscal year 2019, on the assumption of a console-like sales cycle. Now that the Switch looks more likely to sell like a handheld, we update our sales forecast to reflect a longer sales cycle. We now expect the Switch to achieve peak sales of about 5 years after launch, i.e. around fiscal year 3, 2021, like a typical handheld game device. We also raise our peak year sales forecast from 25 million units to 31 million units, blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, they are basically projecting 130 million units to come out by the end of 2021. And that's crazy to me that they're projecting those kind of sales numbers. Even if you want to look, let's take the Switch and put it in that handheld bubble. Nintendo's only had one handheld system crack 100 million units. The DS. So Nintendo doesn't normally crack that 100 million barrier with either home consoles or their handhelds. So to think that this thing's going to fall somewhere between the Wii and the DS in terms of sales, to me is just nuts. Especially when, I still think there is some truth to that. Some people just don't care about handheld gaming because they can game on their phone. I think there is some truth to that the wider consumer base might not be interested in a Switch because the games they want to play are already on their phones as is. I mean, think about it. If Final Fantasy 15 ends up being the Pocket Edition on Switch, why would a phone user buy a Switch to play the Pocket Edition of Final Fantasy 15 if they could play the same game on their phone? So it's one of those things that I think they are overestimating a little bit here. Can it outsell the Wii? I think even that's a stretch right now. I think it's less of a stretch, at least for predictions, than it was before the Switch launched. I think, saying the Switch will sell 100 million units or sell better than the Wii isn't as bold as it once was. But to project 130 million units after 6 months of sales is just... it hasn't even been 6 months of sales. Like, we don't have the sales data for a full 6 months yet. That is just nuts to me. I can't believe that that's what's happening. But that's what they're projecting. Their projections are usually spot on, although because they're like a credit company and with analyst stuff, they adjust their projections all the time. Obviously, they originally said 70 million by 2019, which again was already a pretty bold number. 3 years from launch, 70 million units, that's pretty nuts. And to say that's based on a home console space, like really? Nintendo home consoles usually don't even sell that high. Come on now. So yeah, it's crazy to me that these are the projections happening, obviously based on its severe popularity in Japan, but it's popular worldwide. My thoughts on that are, I think it's just nuts. I think 130 million units is way too high of a projection. I would say between the 70 and 90 million mark is probably the peak for the Switch. I don't think it's going to quite hit the Wii. Now, if they release an upgraded Switch a couple years from now, that it feels like a Switch 1.5 or even a Switch 2, but they lump all of the original Switch sales and like the new Nintendo Switch sales together, maybe then they can crack 100 million because they'll have a lot of people upgrading their Switch to the Switch 1.5 or Switch 2 or whatever, the new Nintendo Switch. But besides that, I think 130 million units just sounds nuts to me. Even if it was strictly just a handheld and they wanted to look at it as a handheld piece, I still think projecting 130 million units is nuts. Nintendo's only ever gotten that high once. To think they're going to suddenly catch that lightning in a bottle again is crazy to me. But again, Switch is crazy popular. It's doing really, really well. They can't keep up with demand. It'll be interesting to see if at some point over the next year, Nintendo has enough units to meet demand and then some, because that's when you're going to really see where the Switch stands popularity-wise. Is it like a PlayStation 4 where it continues to sell a couple 100,000 units every single month? Is it like a DS where it's moving, 20 million units per year? We don't know because Nintendo cannot make enough of them right now. But when they can, that's when we're going to finally see what the sales plateau for this platform potentially is. And I think we'll have more accurate predictions, I think, by the end of 2018. And maybe that's beating on an obvious drum. Oh, the longer we wait, the more accurate the projections are going to be. Yeah, of course. I mean, we have more data to work with. But, yeah, just kind of my 2 cents on that. Just crazy to me. 130 million units. I mean, right now down in the comments, why don't you guys tell me what your projections for the sales of the Switch are? Where do you think it's going to land? How many units do you think it's even going to sell in the U.S.? How many in Japan? And then how many worldwide? Because I have no idea. I'd have to even look up the split between Japan and U.S. sales of the previous systems to start making those kind of projections. But yeah, somewhere between 70 and 90 million is where I think it's going to be worldwide, at least. Anyways, folks, we have that crazy story. We have Netflix is apparently ready. I don't know what's going on. I am Nathaniel Jans from Nintendo Prime. If you like this video, you know what to do. And if you dislike the video, that really sucks. But you know what? Hit that dislike button. I hope you enjoyed the gameplay you saw throughout this video of Project Octopath Travelers. I don't know why that's still a pending title. They should just call it Octopath Travelers. It's an absolutely fantastic game. You can play the demo that I'm playing right now on the Switch for free. And I'll obviously have a link down in the description for maybe a link if I can find a pre-order link for this game, because I am convinced after playing this demo, I'm pre-ordering this bad boy. I'm getting it. Hopefully it comes out as a physical copy, because I would love a physical copy of this game with some beautiful art in a collector's edition. Anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next one.